piccolo salto di qualche giorno. Ho interrotto la registrazione per via di fattori urgenti e eccomi. Ora, a ricordarmi quello che bisognava fare qui dentro.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Stavolta lo seguiamo, ok? Vediamo che succede. Porte chiuse. Inevitabilmente chiuse.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Dal boss.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
No. Il ripostiglio delle scope è mitico. Oh, è assolutamente
There was
mitico.
nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
Oh.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA. Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused. You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it. Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path. Maybe when you go talk about this with your friend, you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning.
Hai perfettamente imitato come parlo. Adesso mi sa che...
Stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Oh. Penso che andrò via ora.
Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here, when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. He or she has fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place at the computer, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
Sono tornato. Sono l'uomo umano. Ah no, a chi voglio ingannare? Sono sempre io. Narratore, ti ho fregato.
Ah, second player. It's good to have you on board. I guarantee you can't do any worse than the person who came before you.
Certo.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
No, mi sta antipatico. Scendo giù. Questo è quanto più giù si possa andare. Ci sarebbe un biglietto ma non si legge niente.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. "I'm dreaming!" he yelled. "This is all a dream." Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
Whee!
Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd,
Inception.
and this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words,
Carina
was
questa
a
macchina.
shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, For just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Una variante di uno dei finali originali di Stanley Parable. È davvero interessante, cioè questo gioco riesce sempre a portare certe sorprese nei finali o nelle scelte che si fanno in questo gioco.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Hey, whiteboard ending.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided...
Sì, ripostiglio.
No, not again. I won't be part of
Sì.
this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at
Oh.
all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time.
Mi piace fissare la roba che c'è in questo ripostiglio. È affascinante.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
C'è una targhetta. Ah, è il cesso, ma non si apre. A volte si dovrebbe aprire, credo.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was
Che
being held
stanza
from him?
enorme.
What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Quindi come posso scriverlo se non lo so? Non posso conoscerlo, l'hai appena detto. Che logicità c'è?
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
Già. 2, 8, 4, 7. Oh. 2, 8.
2845.
Cosa? Non ho sentito.
Stanley simply began entering random codes into the keypad, knowing full well the sheer statistical unlikelihood that this would ever result in a correct combination. If he knew that the combo was 2845, it would be another story entirely. But it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself.
Oh.
And Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo.
Tutta questa fatica per nulla, narratore, eh? Potevi farla aprire direttamente.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Non per molto intenti dire.
Stanley walked straight ahead to the
Già.
large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Qui c'è l'uscita però. Ah, ascoltiamolo per una volta.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Fa sempre un effettone vedere tutte queste TV accese.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it.
La
His
tastiera è
own
tutto.
life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Una volta per tutte. Vogliamo davvero spegnerla? Ma sì, sia fatto. Tutto completamente buio.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
La prima volta che mi è capitato pensavo che era una specie di trappola, ma è così. Questo è ciò di cui era contento di fare il narratore. Semplicemente questa storia. Molto corta. Così pregna di significato.
How long was I sitting there? Stanley wondered to himself. Minutes? Days? Centuries? Did something crucial happen while my senses were turned? He made a note to be more careful with time from now on.
Se ben ricordo c'è qualcosa qui. Ehi! Alla faccia, non mi va più di uscire da quella porta per quel finale. Esco di qua. Sì!
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along.
Oh.
He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes.
IGN 9 su
Now that you're
10.
here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
No.
Ah, then in that case we'll continue. But now, here comes the real question. What do you think would have happened if you had told me that you wanted this to stop? Do you think it would have been particularly different? Would I have taken the same idea but rephrased it superficially to fit that answer? Perhaps you never would even have thought of it if I hadn't brought up the issue in the first place. Oh, now think about it. Will it be worth it for you to restart and then come back here just to do the other option? Clearly, this whole gag takes some time. What if the other option is even longer? How long will you spend in total just to have heard all the narration? Oh, and this is rich. Perhaps you just played the other option, and now you've come to see what happens in this one. So, what do you think? Which choice was the better one? Imagine if you had selected continue on your first playthrough, how tantalizing it would be not knowing what happens when you pick the other option. Indeed, you are one of the lucky ones. Though if the other option is really miserable to listen to, then perhaps you're not. In fact, I'm just going to say that no one who's listening to this is lucky. Well now, I've built up the other options so much that I'm going to stop talking and leave you to your decision whether to come back here, continue with the game, or just sit in this spot forever and ever. Cheers.
Grazie. Wow. Mi ha davvero abbandonato qui. Beh, a questo punto non ci rimane che riavviare il gioco. Non è mai la fine, non è mai la fine. Che cazzo è successo al pavimento? Cos'è tutta questa carta?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers. Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
Già. Penso che cambi solo che c'è un sacco di carte in giro. Quindi io cosa faccio? Prendo e salgo di nuovo qua e vediamo che succede adesso. Hop, hop. Sì! E vai!
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes.
Ero gamer, 7
So,
su 10.
now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
Adesso sì.
Well, I don't know how to say this politely, but you could literally just hit escape and restart the game any old time you want. Like, right now. You could have done it just then.
Perché non
Now
riavvii
would
tu
also
il
be an
gioco?
appropriate time to quit. Any of these
L'hai fatto
places,
tante
so
volte.
many more, all of them are appropriate. I'm enjoying what seems to be an internal conflict going on where you are literally unable to act on your own desires to restart the game. So,
Ma se l'hai
just to
fatto
push
sempre
the
tu.
envelope, I'm going to try and make this as miserable as possible and see how long you can maintain.
Ah, vedremo.
There once was a man named Stanley, who people considered so manly. But the truth must be told, he was not very old, and was quite particularly gangly. What Stanley liked most was buttons. He pushed them like some kind of glutton. He did it all day in a meaningful way.
Sono ancora
But
qui.
his brain had long ceased to function. Which is why he is in this parable, and lives an existence quite terrible. And if you are not strong, and keep playing along, you too will become quite unbearable. You too will become quite unbearable.
Sono sempre qui. Non riuscirei a farmi riavviare il gioco. Devi farlo tu. Ah. Oh, comincio a pensare di doverlo fare io. Fanculo. Non potevo sopportare più di stare lì dentro con quella musica.
The meeting room. Yes, that's where everyone would be. Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room, and from then on, he would never be alone ever again.
Mai più da solo. Sì. Mai più solo. Oh, riuscirò mai a fare questo? Non ci penso proprio. Cioè, sarebbe un finale in un certo genere, ma...
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Si resetta ogni volta che si riavvia il gioco, quindi non lo so se ci riesco a farlo quel finale.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go to
Ehi!
his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Maledizione narratore, mica è giusto. Vabbè.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Oh, il cesso si apre. Questa sottospecie di cantilena. Oh, si apre anche questa. Cosa c'è qui? Oh, povero panda. Ping pong. Ping pong. Lo voglio anch'io la musichetta d'ascensore che ripete il mio nome ogni tanto. Al narratore sembra piacere. E dove saremmo mai arrivati? Da nessuna parte! Proprio così l'ascensore non va da nessuna parte. Ma proprio da nessuna parte, cioè mi mettete lì dentro potete stare pure un'ora, ma continua a vibrare semplicemente.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again
2, 8,
stunned to
4,
discover not
5.
an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk.
Sì.
That kind of
Ok.
anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming new age music.
Fanculo narratore. Mi prende per il culo tutto il tempo.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Stronzo. Vabbè. Scendiamo. Sono in vena di conquistare il mondo adesso.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold?
No, non si può saltare nulla in questo gioco.
Did he have the
Se non si può,
strength
non si
to
può.
find out?
Cioè, ci sono alcune parti in cui si può almeno cercare di correre un po' di più, eccetera.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control?
Mai!
It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
No, al diavolo. Voglio tutto il potere per me. Mio!
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you?
Sì.
After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control?
Sì.
Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go. Turn the controls off and leave.
È quello che sto facendo. Me ne sto andando per completare il mio piano di conquistare il mondo.
I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are set to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say, 2 minutes. Ah, now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is.
Dannazione narratore.
Time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're obliterated? All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway. I'll tell you exactly what happened to them. I erased them. I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp. I have to say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go-around will be even better. My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock, why not? These are precious additional seconds, Stanley. Time doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you. Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones, or maybe this big red button, or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a
Maledizione narratore.
watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble. This is not a challenge. It's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't.
Perché?
Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle.
No.
30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing.
Ah.
Just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully? Another choice. Make it count. Or don't. It's all the same to me. All a part of the joke.
Mi arrendo.
I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say happily ever after.
Comunque no, credo non ci sia un modo per uscire lì. È sempre stato una specie di... come si dice? Di battutona di fronte a questo gioco. Non lo sai che puoi premere i bottoni colorati così e quello ti fa uscire e c'è il finale segretissimo? No, semplicemente non si esce da lì, da quello che so.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Input received. Ottimo, stavolta quale scelta prendiamo?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Okay, I think we all know the drill by now. Blah, blah, blah. Dark secrets, the keypad. Stanley pushes some buttons. Oh, hey, look, it's a new passageway.
Ma va.
All surprise.
Grazie narratore. Mi hai risparmiato veramente un casino di tempo. Andiamo. Come cacchio fa? Certe volte è implicito che non sa tutto quello che abbiamo fatto, certe volte è implicito che lo sa invece. Cioè, sono cose veramente... Bah.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Ma anche no, stavolta me ne vado proprio.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Nope.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Sono sicuro che non c'è la mia
At this
morte lì.
point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Non morirò. Il narratore mi sta buggellando poco ma sicuro. Sì. Ops. Forse dovevo ascoltarlo. Wow, cosa? Sono bloccato in questo posto.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this life is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life.
No,
Farewell, Stanley.
non voglio crepare. No, dannazione narratore. Oh!
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated, as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Wow. Questa è stata una sorpresa. Non sono crepato. Sono ancora vivo. E vai. Sì.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Già. Qual è il punto di tutto questo? Quello di raccontare una storia che il personaggio deve fare una specie di dittatura.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Concept. Una marea di concept. Ci sono un sacco di spiegazioni. Ehi, solitario. Ah, fa quello solitario. Cioè, insomma, questo finale è tutto una specie di curiosità. Sì, sì. È una serie di curiosità, ste cose qua. E alcune cose tagliate. Sì, in uno delle parti tagliate Stanley doveva diventare uno che sparava alieni, eccetera, ma poi questa parte è stata tagliata. Insomma, una delle tante parti in cui si parodizzava. Questa era l'edizione HD di Stanley Parable, ma hanno pensato di trasformarlo in questo, penso. Le email per il narratore. Per dargli idee sul gioco. Peccato che non si leggano bene perché attualmente la grafica del mio gioco è stata scalata per il mio portatile, che già non è molto potente. L'ufficio di Stanley, tutte le sue revisioni. Che museo. Mi. Ah. Questo è uno di quei bottoni che ci punta quanto c'è il finale con il conto alla rovescia, nel quale si crepa, non importa quello che si fa. E questo? Ah, le voci tagliate del narratore. Bisogna andare a cercarle però. Si sentono appena, vabbè. Ne sento già abbastanza del narratore ogni volta che gioco. Penso sia tutto. Forse avrò mancato qualche piccola cosa da guardare in questo posto, ma io non farò durare molto. Cosa c'è lì? Ah, il telefono che bisognava prendere per quel finale con la moglie finta. C'era il contatore prima. Mm, un altro finale. Ah, trailers. Questo è il menu che doveva apparire quando si prima ESC, ma l'hanno cambiato. Bene, bene, bene. Uscita, prego. Dov'è? Direi che abbiamo guardato abbastanza. Adesso è faccenda di trovare l'uscita. O forse rimanere qua a vita per non crepare di nuovo. Vabbè, pazienza.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push
Non
escape,
posso farlo.
just quit.
No.
There's no other way to beat this game.
No.
As long as you move forward,
Posso
you can
cercare un
take
finale.
someone else's path. Stop now. It can be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time.
Ho lasciato che il tempo ci decida per me. Sono morto. Oh. Salve, in questo momento sei morto. Riavviamo. Perché ha deciso di non riavviarsi da solo, evidentemente. Perché il narratore è stato fermato prima da quest'altra tizia, la narratrice.
Wait, Stanley thought to himself. Am I sure that the orders stopped coming in? How is that possible? They never stopped. Surely I was mistaken.
E adesso quale scelta potrei prendere? Mi sa che sto esaurendo le scelte.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Oh sì, mi sembra che ci sia quella specie di finale tagliato che era presente nella demo del gioco. È stato
Yet
incluso
there
in
was not a
questo.
single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Vediamo. Per ottenerlo. Wow, già apre tutto adesso. Accidenti.
Here's the
Ah,
door,
no.
U.G.O.
Dannazione. Sì, bisogna far chiudere queste porte e continuare di là. E ora? Cioè... No. Ho già fatto quei finali. Dovrei semplicemente riavviare il gioco, temo. Sì, grazie. Ecco la porta, vai e basta. Mhm.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley
Devo
decided to go to the
trovare
meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
qualche computer che aspetta il mio input. Ma non ne trovo nemmeno uno per il momento. E ormai penso di aver finito il gioco. Cioè, non ricordo se ci sono altri finali.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Vediamo un po' se questo... Sì! Perfetto, ne mancano solo 2, ma non ci arriverò in tempo, temo. Si apre già parecchio più prima adesso, è già aperto.
Here's the door.
Ah.
U.G.O.
Fanculo. Riavvia. Devo riuscire a farlo. Nel frattempo accumulo input per quella specie di
Already
roba.
this was uncomfortable, and Stanley decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, that he would never leave it again in his life. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Tuppidupidu.
Yet there was not a single person here either.
Stavolta mi sa che salvo, se no ogni volta vai a
Stanley
riavviare.
decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Boss's office. Boss's office. Già come si apre. Ecco la porta.
Here's the door.
Fregato. Fregato. Mi ricordo che appena uscito questo gioco aveva una porta un po' più stretta nell'input. Sì, cambia sempre questo. Le porte si aprono di nuovo. Mi sembra che è inutile andare qui o no? Sì, la porta è chiusa infatti. Sembra quasi che sia implicito che si intrappola il narratore nella stanza del boss, anche se è attualmente una cosa semi impossibile, penso, perché anche se si chiudono porte diverse, eccetera, non so, mi sembra improbabile che si possa intrappolare il narratore dietro una semplice porta. Dato che può scegliere lui se aprire o chiudere le porte. Però questo è quello che succede, sostanzialmente. Se notate nella console ci sono diversi suoni o voci che mancano. E no, l'ascensore non funziona. È evidente un rimasuglio di qualcosa che doveva essere inserito. Non so se hanno detto qualcosa riguardo questo finale o meno. Dovrò andare a controllare. Tanto penso che abbiamo finito. Purtroppo ci dovremo accontentare dei finali che ho trovato. Quello là che si ottiene premendo gli input sugli schermi non l'ho potuto fare. Riavviato il gioco, viene resettato il counter, ma... Questo è tutto, sì. Poi vedremo che gioco mettere su la prossima settimana. Tuppidupidu, ta 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 ta. Cammina, cammina. Siamo quasi. Escape. Non vedo niente. Ah, eccolo. E questo è quello che succede. E basta. Si vede aprirsi questa cosa lì sotto che non è assolutamente nulla, ma... Eh sì, questo è il finale. Un finale probabilmente tagliato.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley
E
decided
c'è
to
un
go to the
forte
meeting.
rumore di
Perhaps
pioggia.
he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Nonostante ci sia un sole grande così. Ammesso che sia il sole. Adesso cosa posso mai fare?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Oh sì.
Ah, yes, truly a room worth
Caffè.
admiring. It had really been, but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
Sì, ci porta direttamente qua.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief,
Riavviamo. Credo di aver fatto davvero tutto. Cioè, a parte... sì, naturalmente, a parte il finale nel quale bisogna stare lì per 4 ore. Oh! Ah, ce l'ho fatta! Sì, a parte il finale creativo dove bisogna stare lì per 4 ore a premere il pulsante, ma... Oh! Al paradiso dei pulsanti. Sì, non succede niente comunque. Bisogna solo riavviare il gioco a questo punto. E basta, finito lì. Sì, penso sia davvero tutto. A parte magari le...
all of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the
A parte
meeting.
magari le
Perhaps
varianti
simply
per i voti che lo si dà ai cosiddetti spunti creativi che si dà il narratore a un certo punto. Ma non cambia nulla a parte quello che vi
when
dice
Stanley
comunque.
came to a set of
Non cambia molto a quello che il narratore vi dice. Nel caso votate che so 1 o 5, queste cose qua. Di nuovo l'ufficio è
Stanley
pieno di
decided to go to the
carta.
meeting room to check on his co-workers. He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others, so the thought of total solitude was terrifying to
Che
him.
finisce qui.
When Stanley came to a set
C'è una piccola variante che succede in uno dei tanti DAV che si fanno in questo gioco, ma non sembra che momento accadere.
all of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
No, sembra che non voglia accadere. Non si decide il gioco a farlo scattare. Praticamente deve squillare un telefono, ma il gioco sembra non decidersi a farmelo accadere.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Non accade, gente. Il gioco ha detto di no.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it
Ah,
mean? Stanley
per
decided
favore,
to go to the meeting
gioco.
room.
Posso
Perhaps he
avere
had simply
quella
missed a memo.
la cosa lì? Probabilmente forse perché l'ho già fatto in passato. Quello è il punto. Ah, maledizione, maledizione, maledizione. Maledizione!
All of his
Squilla
co-workers
telefono!
were gone. What could it mean?
Squilla!
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
Ah, non squilla. Ultimo tentativo, poi lo chiudo. No, questo non vale come ultimo tentativo. Ho semplicemente cambiato l'ufficio. Mi serve l'ufficio classico. Perché mi sembra che ho fatto tutto. Poi comunque controllo e vediamo la prossima settimana.
How wonderful. Stanley was alone. Finally. This is great, he thought to himself. This is what I've wanted all along. I got what I wanted.
Ah, ho ottenuto quello che volevo. Già. Totale solitudine. Fantastico. E tazze. Bene. Benissimo, gente. Ho finito Stanley Parable. Ci vediamo la prossima settimana con un altro gioco e penso che stavolta sarà un retro game. Vediamo però, eh. A presto.